How powerful is Cox Fiber? Powerful enough to keep fans across the country in the action on the biggest game days of the year. Whether you're one of 65,000 fans at Allegiant Stadium or you're streaming the game at home with Cox Fiber from the company with America's fastest download speeds. Whenever it matters most, Cox keeps you connected. Limited availability in select areas. Speeds vary and are not guaranteed. Cox terms and other restrictions may apply. Analysis by Ookla of speed test intelligence data. Fixed median download speeds. US Q3 2023.
Radio you can touch.
Quiet, numbskulls. I'm broadcasting.
Showtime. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Are you ready?
Ready.
This is the Bob and Jeff Show, starring Bob Lutz.
Let me just turn around here. The Willard Garvey Crime Prevention Citizen Activist Award.
I like.
Jeff Lutz.
What crime are you preventing? Are you out there
Well, it's a Elite
nabbing bank
42
robbers?
award.
In real life, such ridiculous nonsense.
97.5 and 1240 KFH.
Stand by for action.
Good afternoon, everybody. It is a Tuesday edition, the Bob and Jeff Show on KFH Radio. Bob Lutz, Jeff Lutz back. We had a new co-host yesterday, the big fella, Anthony. Thought a little bit about offering him a contract, but
Is that what we do? We
decided
sign
against it.
contracts?
Well, sure.
Okay, good.
Sure, that's what
But
we do.
But you said you decided against it. He wasn't that good. Is that what you're
Well,
saying?
I'm going to think about it another day or two.
All right. Well, I didn't know you had the authority to
Tony
levy
Ducey's given me
contracts.
an incredible amount of authority
That's amazing.
on this show. Well, it's happened.
And yet you can't shake me.
Well, listen, I brought you into the world. I worry about you. You know, I want to make sure you're.
No need to worry.
Well, right now we got worries. Your pipes are frozen. It's always something. So I got to make sure that.
Pipes are frozen.
How'd that happen? Did you not unhook your hose?
Well, we had the faucet running because
Didn't answer my question.
I don't know what that even means.
Well, you take your hose off.
I don't
the
have a
spout
hose.
every winter. Make sure that the water.
I don't think I have a hose.
Freeze up in the pipes.
Well, we turned the water on in the house, and it was inadvertently turned off
By the cat again?
by someone I shall not name.
Your wife.
Yeah, she did it.
Wait a minute. Why are you throwing her under the bus?
You said it.
I was just guessing.
Yeah,
So
she
what
brushed.
happened? What's the fallout of that?
We don't have water.
And they're coming out when?
They're not coming out, but we just got to wait for it to thaw, which hopefully when it gets above freezing tomorrow will happen. But we've got the faucet on, so when it starts, it'll come, So if it comes on while I'm not there, then there's water running all day.
So you've got to stay home all day tomorrow to wait for the water.
Yeah, that's right.
That seems like a
And I want a day
way
off,
to do
and
things.
I haven't had a day off in like a full day off from
You've had so many days off.
when?
You know what? I never had a day off. I
Well,
can't
that's
even
your
relate
problem.
to what a day off feels like.
Well, that's your problem. You left a lot of
every
money on the
couple
table.
weeks for you, it's I need a day off.
I haven't had a day off in a long
You were
time.
off here yesterday.
I'm talking about a day off.
You know the last day off I had?
Uh-uh.
A long time
Well,
ago.
I get paid time off, and I'm going to take advantage of it, as I think
869
everyone
1240
should.
for you working people out there who don't quite believe in that.
Really? Who wouldn't believe in that?
I don't know. A lot of whining about days off.
Not whining. I'm just taking one.
I don't know. I don't like it.
You don't have to like it, but you better learn to love it.
So you're going to be taking a lot of days off.
No.
How many days off do you get?
Close to like 20?
20?
No, I think so.
Really? You've been there 3 years and you get 4 weeks of vacation.
Yeah, it goes up fast. Like the first years isn't as much, but at 1 year it goes up a lot, and then it doesn't go up until like year 5 or 10 after that.
The most I ever had after 20 years was 5 weeks. I don't know. Not happy with it.
It might be 120 hours, but it's quite a few.
Well, 120
20.
hours, 3 weeks.
That's 3 weeks. Whatever. Who cares? It's a lot, and I have a lot.
Is it hard to have a father who's obviously smarter than you. I mean,
I don't know. I'd have to ask somebody where that was the
for
case.
a while, but that math was so easy. 120 hours, 40 hours a week, 3 weeks. I just did that so quickly.
Great.
And well, for 160. What? I mean, it was awful. Your response.
Anyway, I get paid time off, and I use it occasionally.
869-1240, the hotline on which you can call us, but not in our first segment. We like to banter and argue and,
Do this,
insult
whatever
each other.
this is.
Well, it's fun.
It's wonderful.
I always have fun with it.
You didn't insult Anthony yesterday in segment 1.
No, I'm not going to insult Anthony. He's new to the show.
You did fine.
He's a good guy, and he'll be on more.
You got the studio yesterday?
No, we did it right here.
Okay.
We were happy to have Anthony. My wife catered to him, brought him 2 bottles of water.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's never happened for me.
Well, she's not here very often when you're here. And she's the most catering person ever. So
She does love to cater.
So please don't insult my wife, or we'll have big issues.
Those glasses, man, it's hard to continue
What's
looking
wrong
at.
with the glasses?
Did you say they were women's glasses?
No, they're not women's glasses.
You said they might be.
They're guys' glasses.
Okay.
They're just kind of rounded.
Strange.
Kind of a round lens.
Strange look.
I like it. Picks, you're curious? I won. 5-4 for the week. The only one over 500. The only one who had a good week, really.
Now, which 5 did you get? Let's hear that.
I got KU, Memphis, Kansas City, Houston, and the Rams. You were 3-6 for 18 points. I had 25 points. Duda was only 3-6, but he hit the big ones, so he had 21 points. Max, fortunately, Max got a couple of big ones, Detroit and Memphis, but those were the only 2 he got for 12 points.
Well, Detroit didn't cover.
Well, that's right. He only got 1 right. No, he got Buffalo. So he was 2-7 for 12 points. So not a great week. Even the winner was only 5-4.
I only got Memphis, Kansas
You got
City.
the Rams, Kansas City, and Memphis.
That's it?
That's it.
It's embarrassing.
Pittsburgh really let us down, weren't competitive. Philadelphia. What an absolute unmitigated disaster.
How does that happen?
Season became
Crazy.
I was just on a phone call before we started the show, and somebody mentioned, is that the biggest collapse? Which is the bigger collapse, I think is the way he phrased it. The Eagles or the 2000, which year was it? 2006-07 Wichita State basketball team. It's a great question.
Oh, that's the
I'd
Eagles.
have trouble picking between the two.
The Shockers didn't last that long. They got up to number 8 in the country pretty early in the season and then really fell off from
Well, they
there.
got to 9-0. That's not bad.
Yeah,
They got to 9-0. Some those wins included a win over LSU, Syracuse, LSU was number 6 in the country at the time. 15th ranked Syracuse.
They beat George Mason of Wyoming.
They beat Wyoming. George Mason. They won on the road. So there were some nice wins in that start. Then they lost to New Mexico in a tournament out in Las Vegas. They lost to USC, and the ship that had been sailing came back to dock. They finished 17-14 after that 9-0 start. So 8-14
Not good.
the rest of the way. Similar. It was a good question. Made me
Yeah, but the Eagles were coming off a Super Bowl appearance.
Shockers were coming off a Sweet 16.
Were they?
Yeah.
All right. Well, whatever.
Again,
It's different than being in the Super Bowl.
I go back. Max, you got to be on
beating
top
Winthrop
of this.
in Tennessee is different.
Fool alert. Fool alert.
Is different than going to the Super Bowl, in my
Max
opinion.
is just too nice. There it is. There it is. Max is too nice.
What's fool alert about that?
Just mixing things up. You were mixed up.
Not really. Weren't they? They were like a 7 seed the previous year when they got to the Sweet 16.
They went to the Sweet 16. I don't care what seed they were.
I'm just trying to remember. They beat Winthrop and then Tennessee. Tennessee, I believe, was the 2, and Winthrop was a 10. I believe that's correct. And yes, they did go to a Sweet 16, and they did have some pieces of that team coming back. And
they had a lot of pieces of that team.
And they
coming
did
back.
start 9-0, as you mentioned.
They had a lot of pieces of that team coming back. That was a very, very disappointing season. That team included the likes of Kyle Wilson, P.J. Cousinard, Sean O'Geary, Matt Breyer, Karen Bradley. Listen, that's a pretty solid team. They had Philip Thomason coming off the bench. Do you remember him?
Yeah, transfer out of Colorado State.
They had Ryan Martin, youngster. Only Gal McKell was on that team.
Yeah, he was much hyped. He ballyhooed prospect, and ended up making it to the NBA. So it wasn't totally off base.
The most obscure player off that team, 2 of them, freshmen Chris Brown,
Arbery Butler,
and David King.
David King was like a walk-on, though, right?
I don't know.
Out of Mays High School.
Yeah, they were obscure. That's all. That's my only point.
Chris Brown, don't remember. Was James Anacreon on that team, or
No,
was he later?
he was not. Their leading scorer that year was Kyle Wilson, 13.7 points per game. They had lost Paul Miller from the previous season.
Conference Player of the Year. That'll hurt. That'll sting.
But you had O'Geary, Cousinard, and Wilson. That's a pretty solid foundation.
It wasn't, I think it was Sean O'Geary that is blamed a lot for the downfall of that team. Some off-the-court situations.
I don't know if I'm going to blame anybody.
I just think that's kind of the word out there. I'm not saying I'm putting blame on him, but obviously something occurred for that team to sink as quickly as it did after such a great start. Went into the Carrier Dome and won. And
Mark Turgeon left after that season to go to Texas A&M. That first roster under I'll give you – here we go. We'll play this game. You get to name players until you miss. Let's see how many you can –
The first roster?
The first roster under Greg Marshall in 2007-8.
I believe P.J. was still on that team.
P.J. Cousinard is correct.
Matt Breyer was still on that team. I believe Ramon Clemente was on that team.
That's 3. Let's see if you can get to 7.
I don't think I can get to 7.
Can you get to 4?
I believe Philip Thomason was on that team.
That's 4. You got 3 more.
I believe Gal McKell was on that team.
That's 5. Can you get 2 more?
I believe Wendell Predum was on that team.
Wendell Predum is not correct. You missed J.T. Durley, freshman, on that team. Montes Griscanis.
Montes Griscanis
was on that team.
Wasn't
Aaron
there another?
Ellis, a freshman, on that team, as was Graham Hatch. And that's where Arbery Butler first appeared.
Yeah.
Wendell Predum was on that team.
I could have kept going.
Yeah, but you would have missed the next one.
I would have figured something out.
You would have missed the next one.
I got 6 for 6. I did not miss.
You didn't get to 7. That's the.
Well, you stopped me. That's not fair.
The rules say that if I make a mistake, it doesn't affect the game.
The official ruling stands.
Here's what we have for you on the show today at 2:25. Dennis Dodd, college baseball journalist, college football journalist for CBSSports.com, will join us to talk about all the goings and comings in college football. Look forward to that conversation. At 2:45, Wichita State Athletic Director Kevin Saal, his monthly appearance on the show. And then a game coming up later at 3:25. Tomorrow on the show, Addie Brown from Iowa State, formerly a standout all-state player at Derby, and as a true freshman,
killing it.
One of the best players in the Big 12.
She's been fantastic.
How about that?
Good get.
I'm not sure I would have projected this for her this quickly.
I don't know that I would have either, but I can't say I mean, obviously, you couldn't miss her high school career But I can't say that I was in the weeds with what she did at Derby. I know she was great. I know her sister before her was great and has ended up at Duke maybe. But yeah, she's been fantastic at Iowa State so far.
Big one tonight in the City League. Big as it gets. Capon visiting Heights. Both undefeated. Both coached by legends. Both with standout players. Great heritage in both programs. Who wins?
I'm surprised you didn't get Steve Eck on the show today.
I love Steve Eck, but I've had him on shows for 25 years.
Yeah, but he's a personality.
All right, I'll get him.
I think Heights wins. I think Heights might win relatively comfortably.
You say that all the time.
In the 8 to 12 point range. Is that crazy?
You haven't seen either team.
Well, I follow the scores, and I do my best to project based on what I hear, what I almost sort of see, the scores that come through, and that's what I'm saying. I think Heights might be untouchable in the City League this year. We're going to determine both of these team seasons by how they do in March.
Capon has an older roster. They have Steve Eck. Not to say listen, they're both fantastic coaches, Joe Auer, Steve Eck. But Steve Eck, I'd have to go back and see what he's done at Capon since he got there. Quickly work that up for me.
When do you
work that up for me?
I don't know. I don't have what he's done.
Go ahead. Give me those records, his first 3 years at Capon. This is his fourth, correct? Or is this his third?
I don't know. Well, it's the same as Weston, right?
Then it'd be his third. So
probably his third year.
We'll work up these numbers. Hopefully you'll get them quickly.
Well, I'm going to do my absolute best.
I need AI. I need because you certainly don't have the real intelligence. I need the artificial.
Last year they were 23-2.
23-2 last year. What about the year before?
The year before they were 21-2.
21-2. And they're 8-0 this year. My math tells me that Steve Eck, let me make sure here, in his years of coaching in the City League, first at South. Now I want you to get ready for this number, or these numbers.
I remember the numbers.
I just want you to get ready.
Single digits.
Steady yourself.
All right.
Okay? Because it's almost.
Start with Jardine.
It's almost. No, I'm not doing that. This is as a City League basketball coach.
I gotcha.
In his now 13 years coaching as a head coach in the City League. Sit down, everybody, or stand up, whatever you need to do, because this is really amazing. He has won 279 basketball games in those 13 years. He has lost, where am I going with this? 9. 279 wins. Wait a minute.
Didn't he have 9 or 11
Let me
losses?
think about this for a second. He was 200. What was he at South? God, I had this a minute ago. He was. Oh, I'm sorry. 19. He has 279 wins, 19 losses. In his 10 years at South, he was 227-15. At Capon, in 3 years, he's 52-4. That adds up to 279-19.
He was 227-15. So yeah,
That's what I just told you.
I'm just making sure. He was 518-94 in junior college, and at Hutch he was.
I don't care about all that.
196-44.
That's all great. I'm just giving you what he's done in what, in my opinion, especially in the 10 years at South, was the best high school basketball league in the state of Kansas. 279-19.
That's incredible.
It's ridiculous.
It will never be duplicated.
Steve Eck will join us at 3:40. Dennis Dodd had to drop out.
Is there any history of City League coaches? When do you think their first meeting was, Auer and Eck? 95, 94, 96, somewhere around there.
Well, Auer was on Goose Dowdy's staff.
But I'm talking about as head coaches.
I don't know. I'd have to think about that.
Do you think there's any history, even if one had left for a while, of two City League coaches spanning 30 years and coaching against each other?
No, this is probably, I'd have to think about that. Nobody's coached in this league as long as Joe Auer
longest tenured
that I can think of. So I'd have to give that a good deal of thought. These are, if you're listing the all-time coaches in the City League, these are 1-2.
No argument.
I'm going Eck 1 and Auer 2. But it's close.
And I know you probably would differentiate from me, but 3-4, Alan Taylor, and I don't even think that's. I get Goose Dowdy would be on. It's tough.
Lafayette Norwood would be in the discussion.
Yeah.
Certainly Cy Sickles.
You love Cy Sickles.
Ralph Miller. Cy Sickles, man, let me explain something to you. East High in the 60s was unbelievable. Unbelievable.
I get it. How many high schools were there at that time?
Well, there was East, South, North, West. There, it was a city league.
I understand. I'm just asking.
And you know who was at the height of their run at that time? Kansas City Wyandotte. And for those of you who don't know, Wyandotte was, if not the best high school basketball program in the country, certainly in the discussion. So East went toe-to-toe with Wyandotte. I remember, I'll go back into my old man.
What led to the downfall of Kansas City Wyandotte?
The same thing that's led to the downfall of urban high schools all over the country.
But theirs has been longer. It's lasted longer, it seems like.
All right, we will take a break. We do not have Dennis Dodd. He will hopefully join the show on Thursday. So we'll reschedule Dennis. We'll be back to talk more, get into the NFL playoffs after this.
How powerful is Cox Fiber? Powerful enough to keep fans across the country in the action on the biggest game days of the year. Whether you're one of 65,000 fans at Allegiant Stadium or you're streaming the game at home with Cox Fiber from the company with America's fastest download speeds. Whenever it matters most, Cox keeps you connected. Limited availability in select areas. Speeds vary and are not guaranteed. Cox terms and other restrictions may apply. Analysis by Ookla of Speed Test Intelligence data. Fixed median download speeds. US Q3 2023.
This is the Bob and Jeff Show on 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
869-1240 is our hotline number. We've got NFL to talk about. 2 games yesterday, neither of which were competitive. You wonder how, the state of Pennsylvania really let their fans down. The
Took it on the chin yesterday.
Steelers weren't good, and the Eagles were worse. So we are set now for the divisional round in the National Football League coming up this weekend. And which of these 4 games, I'll give it 1 to 10. Saturday we got Houston at Baltimore. That's a 10. I can't wait to see that game. I just cannot wait for that game.
It's an 8 for me, probably an 8.5, 9.
Now, see,
it's not quite a 10 because I think Baltimore.
What's it missing?
I think Baltimore will win. I don't know if I don't know. I don't think.
What is it possibly missing?
It's not missing anything. I just don't know if it'll be as close as you want it to be.
The Texans are real.
I'm not saying they're not.
I know Baltimore's good. I get it. They are very good. They're my pick to go to the Super Bowl. But don't discount the Texans.
I like the Texans.
You think I don't love Nico? They could win this game. That's why it's a 10 for me. I wouldn't have said that a couple weeks ago. I thought Baltimore was going to skate into the Super Bowl. I don't think that. I think they got their hands full. The nightcap on Saturday is Green Bay at San Francisco. That's a strong 7 for me. I want to see if Jordan Love can take his game on the road and win in a hostile environment.
Really? I don't know if he's ready to do that yet.
Well, I'm sticking with my theme. Why would I back off of that, even though he went to Dallas and won?
Made you look absolutely foolish.
Did I admit it?
On
Twitter,
Twitter
did
you
I
did.
admit it?
Let's
I'm
admit
admitting it right here.
Let's admit it here.
Well, I made it just now. I just made a joke about myself.
Okay, well, now I hope you've learned your lesson.
You know, at this age, you don't have anything to stand at. Pride is a 5-letter word. Nothing to it.
You don't worry about it?
Nah, you can make mistakes.
Then why not?
This audience is going to forgive me for mistakes that I make.
If you're gonna
mistakes in judgment.
If you're gonna put yourself out there, you might as well be crazy instead of just, I don't know if he's ready. Have a hot take. Do something.
I don't like hot takes.
Do something interesting.
I'm always interesting.
That was an interesting take last week.
Sunday, the opener is Tampa Bay on the road. Have played Detroit. We all love the Lions. I think they get this one too. Being home in that environment at Ford Field, I don't think Tampa Bay can handle that. As good as Baker Mayfield played last night, and as I give them a lot of kudos. Nobody thought Tampa Bay was going to be in this position, one of the final 8 teams in the NFL playoffs. Nobody.
No, but you win a bad division, you get a home game against a team that's sinking and possibly...
they took advantage of it, but nobody, this is good for them.
For sure.
And then the final game of the weekend, Sunday night, this one on CBS with Jim Nantz and Tony Romo, the Bills and the Chiefs. What's wrong with Tony Romo?
See? You knew that my was Tony Romo.
Not Jim Nantz.
Not Jim Nantz.
Jim Nantz is one of the all-time greats. So it has to be a problem with Tony Romo. He's fun to listen to. Listen, he gets excited. He gets a little homerish with Josh Allen. Chiefs fans are probably ready to pounce on him because it's obvious he really likes Josh Allen.
Well, he should really like Patrick Mahomes.
But did you see the run that Josh Allen had for a touchdown?
No, but I was in the...
Why do I even ask?
I was at work.
You were at work or fixing
it
busted
was on
pipe.
It was on in the newsroom. You like that one?
No, I don't like it. I heard that for 14 years.
But it was on in the newsroom.
I heard that for 14 years. I'm not gonna listen to that anymore.
Well, I don't know what to tell you. I tried to look up and watch as much as I could.
I'm not going to listen to somebody who tells me, I watched that game, and then that poker tournament was on. Well,
there's a TV that sits to my...
I don't...
Hold on. Let me tell you what... There's a TV that sits to my immediate right on the desk that is to my immediate right, but it wasn't on our station. It wasn't on CBS. It was on the CW, because that's where our news broadcasts were last night.
Well, ask him to turn it.
There's no ask him. I could have done it myself, but just didn't.
Well, you'd think
it was on every other TV, but
anyway, Josh Allen had an incredible run for a touchdown, and this Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes thing is fun. Patrick Mahomes has his number, no question about it.
We'll see if he has his number.
First time Patrick Mahomes has gone on the road,
right,
to play a playoff game.
This is a different animal going to Buffalo.
Absolutely, and I can't wait. That's a 10. That's a 10. What is it for you?
10. That's the 10 game. But
what's
you can't
Tampa Bay, Detroit?
About a 6.
6?
I don't know if I'll even watch that game.
Well, of course you won't.
I can't just sit and watch 4 football games.
I can.
I got stuff to do.
You know what? I can.
Okay.
I've told you all along that the playoffs are the best part of sports. And in almost any sport, I'll watch playoffs. Well, the big 3: football, basketball, baseball. I'm completely into it. So Saturday, we'll try to entice some people to come over, watch some football, and then Sunday maybe the same.
I probably won't be Sunday. I might Saturday.
I said we'll entice some people to come over.
Yeah.
There's no invitation that you can possibly see in that statement.
Then why was I here last weekend?
Because you were invited.
I'm not invited this weekend?
Let me think about it.
All right. Well, I probably won't show up for the Chiefs.
Why not?
Because it's Sunday night, I'd rather just be home.
Well, I listen. You assured us, and not that you're not, not that you're not welcome anytime, but you assured us that our granddaughter was going to be here, and I thought at the time,
I didn't assure you. I said I will
does she
hopefully
really want to come hang out with, even though I'm hugely fun and entertaining. I'm still 68 years old.
Said I'll try to bring Erin. I'll hopefully bring Erin.
Well, what happened?
I don't know. She did some stuff with her friend. She's 17. That's going to happen. And, maybe later on she'll look back and say, man, I missed an opportunity.
How many
there.
more opportunities does she have to be in my presence and certainly Debbie's presence?
Well, she's going to K-State in 6 months or so. 7, whatever. And then, who knows? She'll be back.
Well, there could be a day when she comes back and I don't know she's back. Even though she's standing right there. If you're getting my drift.
I don't. She'll look the same.
Well, no, if you're getting my drift.
I'm not.
My age.
Oh, okay.
Try to keep up.
You're old. That didn't make any sense, though. That was not.
No, I said I may not know who she. I don't know how I could have been any more clear.
It was a bad effort, bad try.
Cleveland, your Browns.
My Browns?
Well, I thought you liked the Browns.
I
kind of liked them, but Houston torched them and was impressive in doing so. So you've got the 1 seeds now, the Baltimore and San Francisco. They get home games for as long as they win. They certainly have the easiest path to the Super Bowl. Give me the odds of a Baltimore-San Francisco Super Bowl.
40%.
40%. That's it?
Yeah, there's a bunch of other teams. I mean, anybody could infringe upon that Super Bowl matchup.
San Francisco's got Green Bay, Tampa Bay, and Detroit. Last year, you would have laughed at that. That would have. That's a pretty. I'm taking nothing away.
At home, yeah, they'll go to the Super Bowl.
I'm taking nothing away from those teams, but the NFC, as we've said all year, was a disaster, and they'll handle that. Baltimore, a little trickier. They got to beat Houston, and then they got to beat the winner of Kansas City Buffalo. Imagine Houston winning that game, the Chiefs beating Buffalo, and the Chiefs hosting the AFC title game.
Could happen. Baltimore, Lamar Jackson's only won 1 playoff game in his career. So to put him in the Super Bowl, he can do it. He's plenty talented. But like your Jordan Love thing, got to prove it to me first.
Well, extremely interesting weekend coming up in the NFL. We'll talk about the Chiefs later in the week. Blair Kirchhoff with the Kansas City Star will join us on Thursday, as well as Dennis Dodd, who had to cancel today's appearance, but he'll be on with us on Thursday. Kevin Saal is our guest, Wichita State's athletic director, making his monthly appearance on the show. Hello, Kevin.
Hey, good afternoon. How are you guys?
Oh, we're well. I'm waiting. Jeff disappeared on me, so we're waiting for him to get back here into the studio. So I got to conduct this interview on my own here for a minute. So the Shockers.
I hope I didn't run them off.
You're an astute guy. You pay attention to everything that's going on, I'm sure. You're probably even drawn somewhat to social media. Is social media a good thing when you've got a team that's scuffling a little bit and fans are free to voice opinions and you kind of get it from all directions? What's your feeling about that?
Well, I think it's we could probably talk for a few segments on this. I think social media can be a really, really useful tool for communications and promotions and all those sort of things. I think, Bob, anytime you set up a dynamic where there's unrestricted dialogue, that there's very little accountability to or for. Certainly, I think the amount of not credibility or relevance, but the amount that you allow that to impact you got to be careful with. I think it's easier to say as a 46-year-old than it is as an 18 to 22-year-old, because certainly our youngsters, young people, young men and women have not lived in a world that doesn't have social media. So it's easy for me to say, hey, I don't dive into comments on social media. Just look at general posts and those sort of things. But that's a lot of the ways our young people communicate nowadays, whether it's all the different aspects of social media. So, again, I think it's a mixed answer for you and probably a little bit more complex. At the end of the day, there's a whole lot more relevant and more constructive ways to focus your time in terms of getting better as a student, a person, or a player than spending time on social media.
So, you hear a lot of times when a coach is in his first year and maybe the momentum positively hasn't sustained itself, that, be patient, wait a year or two, we'll let him get his guys in. Is that your attitude too? Is your attitude one of patience? And if so, what is patience to you? I doubt you set a time frame on it, but what does patience look like to you after you've made a hire?
Yeah, I appreciate that question. I think patience is somewhat of a vague term, because unless you're in it day to day and you see the progress and details and timelines and all those things, for somebody to come out and say, hey, stay patient, I think you really got to educate people on process and what's going on in terms of, locker room dynamics, culture, attitude, learning different styles of play, really tough competitive schedules, all of those things. I think if I can be transparent, maybe even a little vulnerable with you all, we spend a lot of time around all of our programs, obviously our basketball programs as well, and there's a certain level of confidence that comes with the things that you see day in and day out. Film sessions, video review, attention to detail, style of play, how we're developing young men and women as students, persons, players, ultimately professionals, all of those things that you can see day in and day out, and a lot of them are not visible externally. One example that is visible externally is, you guys may have seen that we set another semester record GPA as a full athletics department, and as a part of that, we had 3 programs that set their program record highest semester GPA in the history of their program: men's basketball, baseball, and softball. And so if you think about that from a baseball perspective, holy smokes, we have 30 new guys on this roster. And so for Gretchen Torline and her staff, her unbelievable team, and Brian Green and his staff, and more importantly, our student athletes, to embrace how we do academics here at Wichita State and perform the best that it's ever been done here before, that's a really positive sign. That's one example of an outward-facing sign of success. But there are literally dozens of internal signs that we are headed in the right direction that, I think the general public might have a tendency to roll their eyes about, but at the end of the day, they can't see it. We got to do a good job of communicating what's going on inside the program, ultimately understanding that our fans and supporters are going to be looking at wins and losses. And there is infrastructure that needs to be put in place, and there certainly is a period of time. But I think at times folks will use the word patience and might connect words like a lack of urgency with patience, and that's certainly not the case at all. You can be patient, but be very urgent towards day-to-day, incremental, responsible, methodical improvements, and that's where I feel like our programs are.
Talking with Wichita State Athletic Director Kevin Saal. So you hired Paul Mills, the Shockers' men's basketball coach. Tell us why, and tell fans why, you believe he's the right guy to get this thing turned around, because it has been a little bit of a rocky stretch of late. As I talked about with my first question, fans take notice. Shocker fans want winners. Why do you believe Paul Mills? And just take us behind the scenes a little bit into his personality and his drive and his focus.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't think 16 games into this thing, I don't think any of the reasons that we communicated in March why we hired Paul Mills have changed. And so certainly I'm happy to walk through all those pieces as well. This is an individual that –
Well, in hindsight, Kevin, I'd rather you talk just about his personality and what you believe in about him.
Yep. Well, first and foremost, I believe in his character and his integrity, the way he navigates his walk as a professional, personally, all of those things. He's about the right things in terms of development and relationships with the young men in our program, all of those pieces. If you look at it strictly from a basketball perspective, this is an individual that was hired on as an assistant coach at Baylor in the mid to late 2000s. You guys remember the situation at Baylor. It was a really dysfunctional situation, and Scott Drew gets hired and brings in a staff. They won one game their first season at Baylor, and that program has transitioned into multiple Final Four national championship type program, and that takes some time. I think, in fact, it took 15 years to go from winning one game in a season to a national championship. And so the fact that Paul has been through those trials obviously is very encouraging. He also not only did it once in one of the toughest leagues in the country, he did it twice at Oral Roberts. And I've watched the Oral Roberts program for the better part of 15, 16 years now, having been a part of what used to be the old Mid-Continent Conference and then Summit League. They dominated that with Scott Sutton. Oral Roberts was a really good program in the late 90s and early 2000s, and it really fell on hard times, and it slid fast. And so for Paul and his staff to come in a handful of years, get that program into 2 NCAA tournaments, and beating Florida and Ohio State to get to the Sweet 16, and then having a 2-point loss to Arkansas to get to the Elite Eight, that's saying something at Oral Roberts. And I think you heard Coach Self mention that after our game against Kansas. There is great confidence in Paul Mills, not only from his director of athletics, but from people all over basketball. He's about the right things. He does it the right way. His process is phenomenal. He's a teacher, and it does take time to be good. He has a healthy confidence in terms of where we're headed and what this program will be about. And he works every day to make us better. So really, really pleased with, obviously, the infrastructure pieces. Nobody's going to look at 8-8, including Paul Mills and Kevin Saal, and say we're pleased with that, or our players or anybody associated with the program. Also understand you start 8-3. You've got 5 consecutive losses: Kansas State, Kansas, North Texas, Temple, and Memphis. Memphis recently ranked 13th in the country. North Texas is going to finish top 3 in our league. Kansas is second team in the country, and Kansas State's success has been well documented last year and is likely headed towards an NCAA tournament this year. So it's not like we're playing, the 300 pluses in the net either on our schedule. We won't shy away from a tough schedule. So again, I all of those factors, guys, is it's stormy right now. The waters are choppy, and the most important thing that we can do is stay steady, stay committed to our process in terms of what we know works. Paul's been a part of 2 programs and building 2 dominant programs. I've had experience supporting coaches that have built programs, and so we'll continue to stick to what we know works best. And just appreciate what patience folks can provide as we navigate that process.
Kevin, where does Wichita State stand right now from an NIL standpoint? We know armchair strategies with Timberly and Tyler Weber. Is that duo still active? What are they particularly doing? Do you communicate with them? And is there another group potentially? What is the NIL situation, and how much of a priority is it at this moment?
Jeff, as you know, when I arrived in July of 22, there was $0 attributable to NIL. There was a very strong resistance to adaptation to NIL. And so I think I've shared with you guys, we spent the better part of 6 months not only putting the infrastructure together in terms of our agreement with Open Doors that opens up a window to our student athletes by the business community. It certainly has paid dividends over the last 16 months, but also educating our fan base. And I think that's where we fell the furthest behind in being resistant to NIL at Wichita State. Was we could have jumped on a year earlier the education of our fan base. And so we didn't get to the first NIL gift until January 6th of 2023. And I started July 5th of 22. And since then, we have built, Armchair will be the experts, but I think they're distributing somewhere around $325,000 to $350,000 a year strictly for men's basketball. So that's certainly good growth. And that certainly has been very helpful. Look, we're not supposed to say it, but at the end of the day, we all understand that there are recruiting and retention impacts to NIL. The NCAA just had their national convention. There will be future legislation likely in April, potentially in August. I think you will see NIL become even closer and closer to athletic departments. It will fall underneath the athletic department's umbrella, and our multimedia rights, our Shocker Sports properties, our fundraising and development teams are going to become integrated with NIL. We need to do a good job with that. As we all know, we can have the nicest facilities in the country. We can have some of the best coaches in the country. At the end of the day, we also need to be able to recruit, to retain, and to develop talent. And so that piece is really important. So in short, Jeff, I would say we've made some good progress. Kansas State's dealing with about $1.2 million in NIL. And so certainly we're likely not going to be at that Power 5 level from an NIL perspective, but I do firmly believe we can do more with less. At Wichita State, I think we have coaches in place that value relationships with players. Let me give you an example. Paul Mills walked through 2 recruiting cycles with Max Abmas, who's now the starting point guard at Texas, at Oral Roberts on very little NIL. So relationships matter. Development matters. Having the right coaches in place that the players have confidence that they're developing and becoming better, that piece matters. So, again, it's not all about an arms race on NIL, but we do need to have enough there to be competitive to recruit, retain, and develop.
Final moments here with Kevin Saal, Wichita State Athletic Director. I don't know, did you see the video of Gino Auriemma talking about all this? Did you happen to see that?
I saw a snippet of it, Bob, but I would need a little bit of a refresher because I didn't catch the full context of the video.
Well, he's just saying that he doesn't know that these changes in college athletics are sustainable, especially for older veteran coaches who don't have maybe the success he has. Or I watched it once, and I want to go back and watch it again. But let's say Gino Auriemma came into your office and you were talking about this, the new age of college athletics. What would you tell him to convince him that this can be a good thing down the road?
Well, at the end of the day, to me, the most valuable components of intercollegiate athletics hasn't changed, i.e., we're 50% first-generation college students at Wichita State. Okay, we're providing an opportunity for young people that have never done what they're doing. Nobody in their family has done what they're doing. They're doing it for the first time. So they don't have that necessarily that support network. And they come to Wichita State and they get ingrained and integrated into an academic system and an athletic system. And they get to compete and develop student, person, player professionally. And we're getting young people to the spot where they're earning their degrees. And when you take a first-generation college student that earns a degree and then might go get an advanced degree, well, you're ushering generational and transformational change in families. And that still has to be a part of the deal. There is value in a college education. And despite what you might hear in the national narrative, it from a hiring perspective, from an experience perspective, there's value in it. There are multiple research studies out there that show that in combination of compensation, health benefits, incentives, raises, that a college education provides a little over $1 million more earning potential to a young person over a 40-year career than not. And there are certainly cases where that's not the case, but in general, that is the case. And so that value hasn't gone anywhere. The ability to work with young people and connect with young people hasn't gone anywhere. So we need to fight like heck to keep the educational piece connected to what we're doing, because I think that will change. If it doesn't, that changes the perspective of a lot of folks. Now, the financial piece is a little bit more complex, and you'll have to break me off if we run up against a break here. because there are exorbitant amounts of money that are generated off of intercollegiate athletics. What seems to be lost in the national narrative is that there really are only one or two true revenue-producing sports on every college campus, and that sport supports. You may have seen recently an interview with retired Alabama football coach Nick Saban, where football supports 18 to 20 other sports, 450 to 500 student athletes at that institution, who, by the way, are still benefiting from everything that we just walked through, the 50% first generation, receiving a college degree and all those pieces. And so there's an exorbitant amount of money that's involved in one or two of our sports. We've got to make really smart decisions in terms of what that looks like so that we don't disconnect that educational piece. So I would tell Gino, I would tell our fans, I would tell, I should say, Coach Oriema, any of our coaches that, look, the intrinsic values in being involved in intercollegiate athletics, the intrinsic values and benefits that are associated with participation and persistence in intercollegiate athletics from a student athlete standpoint are tremendous. I experienced it, so I understand the confidence and the time management and the self-reliance and all those pieces that come with being a student athlete. And so those are the things that I think we need to sell. I think our fans struggle with the mobility of the transfer portal and the financial pieces, and I certainly understand the why, because what once was a great beauty of athletics was watching a young person coming into your program and then them develop over 3 to 5 years to become something really, really special. And so those stories will be fewer than they have been in the past. But at the end of the day, it's the same 18 to 22-year-old young person that's trying to develop and get better as a student, a person, player, and professional. And if you focus on those things and take care of all the other stuff that allows us to pour into young people and develop them, that's really where our focus needs to be.
Kevin, great answer. Thank you. We appreciate your appearance, as always, and we'll talk with you soon.
Sounds great. Thanks so much for having us on the show, guys. Appreciate your support and coverage, and go Shockers.
All right, Kevin Saal, Wichita State Athletic Director. Gino Ariema's point was, coaching, we all got into this profession to develop young people. And when you have young people leaving, and with the regularity we now see it, his point is that it becomes harder and much less rewarding to develop those relationships that led him into coaching. So it'd be interesting to have a debate about it, right?
Yeah, it's good stuff.
All right, we'll take a break. We've got one more hour to go. Jeff's got a game, and we'll talk with Cape and Mount Carmel boys coach Steve Eck. That's all ahead on a Tuesday.
How powerful is Cox Internet? Powerful enough to keep fans across the country in the action on the biggest game days of the year. Whether you're one of 65,000 fans at Allegiant Stadium or you're streaming the game at home with America's fastest download speeds powered by fiber. Whenever it matters most, Cox keeps you connected. Cox Internet is connected to the premises via coaxial connection. Speeds vary and are not guaranteed. Cox terms and other restrictions may apply. Analysis by Ookla of Speed Test Intelligence data. Fixed median download speeds. US Q3 2023.